So, you've been working with organizations since 1974, probably before some of the people watching this were born.
It's true.
I love it. And you know some things that a lot of leaders wish they knew that they don't know, that you think is kind of a secret of success. What is it that they need to know they
Well,
don't?
generally, most of them need to be better at delegation, and they need to be better at performance management and managing meetings. But the thing that's really the Achilles heel is they're not very good at balancing authority and collaboration. I think about 80% of leaders sincerely want people to share their ideas, to contribute, to be shared accountability. But of that 80% of those do things unconsciously to sabotage that. So they ask someone their opinion, and halfway through, like a vice president I was coaching once, he knew someone wasn't sharing very much, and he just said, "John, would you tell us your ideas?" And John started talking, but he was a little unsure, and he stuttered some, and about halfway through, the vice president said, "Well, that's stupid. Why do you think that?" Well, what's the chances he's going to say something again?
Exactly.
And so I think leaders talk to their employees as if they talk to their friends, but they're naive about the power of their authority in the room. If they can fire them, then they can't talk that way. And
Right.
so learning how to make it safe to disagree with me as an authority, I think is the primary skill. The naivete is they think it already is, and it's not.
Well, we talked before we came on air about the importance of creating a safe space in the corporate environment. Now, when you work with leaders, you also work with them with their teams directly together. Why is that?
Well, you think about the traditional coaching model, it's you're meeting with the coachee and they're telling you their goals and you're helping them identify milestones and you're cheerleading them through it. And I think that's rather superficial. I mean, I like the athletic coaching model of you got to see them in the game. So I want to be in the meeting. I want to see how they're performing with their direct reports. But even if they're making changes that their employees want them to make, I've discovered their employees are kind of suspicious. Is he just doing that because Rob's here? How long is this going to last? And I found they need support too, to take the risk of saying what they think and see if the leader really is going to be responsive to them. And what I really want is for me to be able to model that in the meeting, kind of challenge the leader about something, and then have the leader say, "You see what Rob did? That's what I want all of you to do." Mm-hmm. And he'll be here until you can. And just providing some training so they have some shared tools. So for instance, if you're my supervisor and I'm not feeling listened by you, telling you you're not listening to me probably is not as cool. But if we made an agreement that anytime I felt that, I could say, "Jack, would you go through the 5 levels with me?" You're going to talk about what I think the facts are, what I think the thoughts are, how I'm feeling, why it's important to me, what's my expectations. I'm going to make sure that I experience being understood. And we've made that agreement on the side. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really the best any team can function is we make agreements about how we're going to handle it when we have disagreements.
What I like about that is it's not saying like, "Hey, you're not listening to me," or whatever. It's like, "Will you go through the 5 levels with me?" And it also reminds them of the technique they've learned that actually makes it work.
Yes, but it requires the leader to extend the invitation.
Uh-huh.
So they have to have learned it and said, "I think this is good. Here's something you can use with me whenever I'm not listening, because I don't want to have that happen." I was working with one team, and I was a CEO, and I think one of his vice presidents, and they were getting into an argument. And so I had enough standing to say, "Well, let me make sure understanding's happening here." And so I just asked the CEO, always ask the authority to be vulnerable. So, what is it this person's saying to you? And so he, "Oh, well, you're saying this and this and this." And the guy went, "No, not what I'm saying at all." And he went, "Oh." And so we need to be able to help each other in a team. Mm-hmm. And most of us grew up in a family where when there was a conflict, we didn't end up closer. And so we don't go to the workplace with skill in that. Yeah. And no organization's healthier than the person at the top. No team's healthier than the leader is. And so it's really the leaders, because they have the authority, I guess they can be generous. They can be more open to others' points of view, but they have to learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know we talked about a technique here, 5 levels. You've, I think 30 techniques that you teach that are really important. and you've been at ExxonMobil 34 years in a row. You got the highest trainer evaluations. So you've been teaching this and it's been working. But out of all those techniques, since we don't have a 3-hour show here, what would you say are one or two of the most valuable ones?
Well, the problem is when we have a conflict, for most of us, there's this emotional wave that hits us that causes us to forget any communication skill. So I teach a process called Speed Through Stress in 5 steps in 15 seconds. And it's not so
Wait,
much...
that's easy. That's like Peter Piper picked a peck. Say it one more time.
Speed Through Stress in 5 steps in 15 seconds.
Okay, good.
So you can learn to do it pretty quick. And it's not so much for health, it's for dealing with that moment when this wave hits me and learning how to move then to just 3 questions that can end this experience of conflict. Just, what is it you want me to know? Is there anything else? Is that all? Or can often give space for us to realize maybe there was a misunderstanding. And so let me just ask you a couple of questions. There's no correct answer.
Sure.
What % of conflict do you think might be because of misunderstanding? No correct answer.
Most of it, probably.
Yeah,
Well,
most people think the majority.
yeah.
Okay, now of that, the conflict that is in fact because of a misunderstanding, what % of that is because you misunderstand?
Well, the ones I'm in, probably mostly me.
Well, that's generous of you to take some responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? But in the middle of an argument, what do you believe about your point of view?
Oh, I think I'm right.
Yeah, what % of the time?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And so when you know you're right, what do you know about them?
They're wrong.
Of course. And when you know you're right and they're wrong, what's your job?
To inform them about how wrong they are so
Yeah.
they can come over to my
Of course,
position.
just trying to
so
be
my right
helpful.
Yeah, and I'm helping you out here.
Yeah, of course. Now, what % of the time when you know you're right, you know they're wrong, and you try to help them, prove to them that they're wrong, what % of the time are they grateful?
Rarely.
Never.
Yeah, talk to my wife.
But it's something we do all the time.
Sure.
And so a lot of these little models are just to help people discover the habits that they have that get in the way of their success. So having awareness doesn't mean you're not going to do things you've done your whole life. You're still going to keep behaving the same ways, but you can learn how to catch it quicker and have an alternative to move through, and that can make all the difference. Because you want a team that's going to look out for you as the leader.
Right.
You want them to use their brain too. And so these 2 models are real powerful in facilitating leaders learning how to actually facilitate disagreement. I think that's a major job of any leader, is to facilitate disagreement.
Right. Otherwise, it goes underground and sabotages everything.
And that risks the bottom line.
Yeah.
There are companies that, have lost hundreds of millions of dollars that I've worked with because they weren't able to deal with the conflict among, 2 executives, for instance. Lives are lost because someone had an idea and no one listened to them.
Yeah, I think that was called the Challenger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.